Rabbi Rod with West Coast Cast, and it's a pleasure to be with you again today. So, we're going to look at something that's pretty unusual. I want to say we're going to be telling the story of really the other, and it's part of one of the reasons why we wanted to do podcasts with Covington Community Church and West Coast Cast is because we wanted to tell the larger stories of the world and globally. And we were recently at a conference about 2 weeks ago in Indiana, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at the Grand Wayne Conference Center. And it was a pleasure to be there by invitation of the current EYN president and former presidents and guest of the EYN. And so it was such a pleasure to be there, to be a fly on the wall on this conference through the Church of the Bretheren. And we're going to share some of those things and pieces of his speech that is the EYN president. That is Dr. Reverend Daniel Mbaya. And he's an excellent speaker and he knows Nigeria so well. And he tells us a tremendous story of not only the violence that's taking place in Nigeria, but also the peace endeavors and things that are happening there. And in the Christian world and in our political world, we don't always think about violence and terror as having a big impact because we don't feel it in the same way that people across the world feel it. And so I think Dr. Daniel gives us a very good piece of what his world is like and shares it with his audience and with us. So we're going to look at a clip of his speech in Indiana. And so he's going to share some insights with us. Mike, Lofty Productions, thank you, Mike, for putting together the transcript that goes with it. So you'll see it in the closed captioning in this video. So it's even that much more able to be understood. And Mike, thank you for putting that together. So we had a little bit of footwork to do before we could actually make this presentation. What do you think, Mike? Yeah.
Technology is your friend.
Technology is your friend, man. We've been fighting Microsoft all day long. So, but we hope that this video comes to you with really some of the hope that we see in Nigeria. And this is actually part one of a two-part video series we did on Nigeria and podcast. And so, Dr. Daniel has already begun in his talk, and he's going to begin talking about some of the current violence, and he'll start with Chibok and some of the things you might already be familiar with in Nigeria. And so we're just going to walk through this, and I'll apologize in advance because I'm the cameraman on this. Our conference room really wasn't set up for audio or video, so I'm actually taking this footage with my cell phone. But I think you'll find it intriguing and engaging, and I hope you do. And I again want to thank you for being our audience today on West Coast Cast. And Mike, if you want to start to roll that footage, we'll
276 of them were abducted. Of course, 50 managed to escape. But out of that, 219 were all EYN members. As I speak to you today, 87 of them are still at large. Some of them had been rescued. Sadly, even as of today, they have not been reunited with their families. Some of them, we learned reliably, were being married out to repentant Boko Harams, sadly. That has been how bad the situation had been. But moving up from there, when the world designated Boko Haram as, but let me explain the meaning of Boko Haram. The actual word Boko Haram is in Arabic, Al-Sunnah Lidawati wal Jihad, meaning people who are committed to the teachings of the Prophet and to jihad. So the name Boko Haram, that is Western education is forbidden, was given to them by outsiders, not by themselves. Media. So much more media. So the name they gave to themselves were people who are committed to the teachings of the Prophet and to jihad. So sometimes when media narratives are saying, what do these people want? They simply just get to know their name. The name that they give to themselves will tell you what they're looking for. So at the beginning, Their intention was to erase Christians from the face of the north and then establish a caliphate. And then from there, they will continue to attack other places until even the south and southeast of Nigeria are all made into an Islamic nation. That's the agenda. So they started attacking. So the abduction of those schoolgirls, they lifted up the whole thing, and then Nigerian government started trying to sit up a little bit to ensure that they are crushed. But unfortunately, they had already grown so big to a point that curtailing them becomes so difficult. So headquarters now of EYN and pastors of EYN. So at that time, we have 50 district church councils of EYN. Let me explain a little bit. We have what we call the local church branches, that is membership and worshippers below 100. They are regarded as local church branches. And then if you are organized into a congregation, you have to have a minimum of 100 baptized or communicant members. And then you will have to have a minimum of 5 local congregations in a particular region. They will come together and form the district church council. So the minimum, and it is interesting for you, unlike in a context here in the States, where the number of members of a church is different from the number of worshippers. In Nigerian context and in EYN context, if you have on your record 100 members, be sure that worshippers will not be less than 250. That's why when we say the population, the membership of EYN is 1 million, when we talk about worshippers, that's including our children, we talk about 2.5 million, because that is just factual. So for a district, we will have not less than probably 5,000 or even more of members or worshippers belonging to a district. So out of 50 district church councils, 43 were all displaced. We were left with only 7 that were not directly affected. That tells you that the church nearly ceases to exist at that time. And that was the time the president and all the management were in Jos, and that was why when the disaster relief ministries of Church of Bretheren came in with other partners and then ensured that there's an office and accommodation for some of the management staff to still try to see that the church did not disintegrate. And at that time, I was in the church in Abuja, and then also coordinating and discovering most of our members that fled from the Northeast, being in various camps and organizing themselves into communities that they do not know. And that Brother Kendi is there, I want to believe so. I had to take them around and then discovering the council, reporting to the headquarters at that time and reporting to the federal government and that, to be able to stabilize. So that's how critical the whole situation had been at that time. At that time, we had about 2,500 staff out of job. Pastors and evangelists, no jobs, so they were stranded. No congregations to pastor, nowhere to work. And at that time, you could imagine the kind of trauma. They were not where they used to be, living in camps with members together, education shattered, means of livelihood all shattered, churches, most of our churches burnt down, businesses lost, and that has been destruction. So, 2016, the situation got a little bit of improvement. The Nigerian military were able to move and push them back. And then we returned to Korhi from Jos in 2016. Coming along with the Cap Theological Seminary, the seminary that was named after Kalb, Stover Kalb, that had to relocate to Kaduna for them to continue teaching. All of us have to return back in 2016. And we returned back, our members were coming back to meet nothing. The worst of it. There are some in the communities, the Muslims, who did not flee. So they were still there. And some of them have been identified to be those that burnt our churches, killed some members, looted our houses. And now the returnees return back to meet them there. What happens? That's the test of faith at that time. And then through the disaster relief ministries, we are receiving a lot of relief materials and support. And then the sharing had to be done. And then the Muslims who, some of them, perpetrated the evil, were coming to correct. And then the pastors now are in the crossroad. Do we give to them? Pastors said yes. Some members were feeling, how can we do this? And then the teaching of Christ Jesus had to take precedence. Jesus said, love your enemies, feed them, pray for them. So we started making the distribution, including to the Muslims. That was helpful, but that was truly witnessing Christ in the midst of the challenges. We continued, and then the house repairs, including the Muslims, are benefiting from the house repairs. In communities, you just build, use mud bricks, build the wall, and then form the Church of the Bretheren funds. Your house will be repaired and roofed. That also had been amazing. So, we continued then to move on and said, what do we do? As we rebuild the churches, as we rebuild the communities, agriculture, or people to go back to farm, and that's why you could see all the charts. Support towards agriculture through fertilizer, through seeds distribution, are all done through the church. One important thing, brothers and sisters, I would want you to know and to hear is this. In all this, the government of Nigeria, international communities have not come to the aid of EYN. It is only the Church of the Bretheren, Mission 21, and of recent, Kerk in Acte, Netherlands, Church in Action, and then our brethren from Covington Community Church. Or else, no compensation, no support from government. So, as General Secretary then, I coined the term EYN, the wounded healer. And of course, I titled my little presentation today as a brief on EYN, faith over fear. So what we have developed over time is to develop faith over fear. So when we are returning back to our communities, the challenge for us is to rebuild our churches, rebuild our houses, rebuild our businesses, send our children back to school. But another area that becomes so burdensome to the church had been, on record, we have over 20,000 widows as a result of this. 130,000 orphans. That's huge. Most of them devastated. We have lots of fiscally challenged persons as a result of this. Some, their hands were blown off by bullet. Some, they are now walking using crutches. Some are crippled even as a result of that. Some lost their eyes. So lots of fiscally challenged. We have a camp in Cameroon, in Minao, where at a certain time there were over 30,000. We have 18,000 of EYN members there for over a decade now. We have about 2,500 orphans in a camp in Benin. At the time when they went, they were from primary school ages and below. Now a lot of them have got into tertiary institutions, universities, and studying pharmacies, medicine, law, engineering, and these expensive courses. Suddenly a lot of them now are being sent back to home because of school fees they can pay, and the camp cannot pay as well. So as leaders, we are caught in between. Do you continue to lament and continue to stay there? Or do you see these challenges as opportunities to move? So we decided, God helping us, that we will see these challenges as opportunities. And in the midst of this, we started rebuilding. And rebuilding resilience. And rebuilding our faith and our commitment. And our peace heritage to continue to witness for Christ in the midst of all this. So I'm happy to inform you, our founding parents, that the Church of the Bretheren in Nigeria that you founded is truly witnessing for Christ and flourishing in the midst of all these challenges. In all this, there has been no record, a single record of an EYN member involved in retaliation or reprisal attack in all of this. In 2016, in the annual conference of the Church of the Bretheren, the president then of TECAN is an economical body made up of 15 member denominations. The president then stood up in the midst of the church annual conference and was beginning to tease us. President Daddy was the president then, to tease us and said, do you still have another cheek to turn to? EYN, do you still hold on to your peace heritage? Don't you think that you will finish? Brothers and sisters, when he was speaking, there was spontaneous reaction to him that we don't want to hear what you are saying. That's how amazing God has worked in the church. So not only the pastors, but the members reacted that so long as we are concerned, we will obey Christ and we will not engage into violence. So with this huge number of widows and orphans and displaced, those that are returning back, there is this fund that's helped towards rebuilding churches. So we were rebuilding the churches in the communities and families and agriculture and that. And sometimes there will be attack again. There are some churches that we have rebuilt now thrice and they have been burned down thrice. But because of the resilience, our members now have developed a system that we're not going to flee again. They will come, the attack will come. We will move a little bit away, stay for some week, 2, 3, return back. There are some communities that for now they have not been there for about 3 years, but they still go there to worship every Sunday. They are living in all other surrounding villages, but Sunday morning, and there's no shade, they will return back and worship there because they said the gospel seed has to still continue to remain there and they're not going to move an inch. So, we have the women ministry, the disaster relief management, the peace unit, the integrated community-based development program, and all of them are engaged in these services to humanity as we build on. So, having been left with 7 district church councils, a miracle started to happen. Most of our members that fled to Abuja area, to Taraba area, and all these areas started assembling themselves together. And they started growing, and those that started returning back. Today, to the glory of God, through your support, prayers, and partnership, EYN now had recovered, and we are now having 76 district church councils.
Wow.
We now are heading to 700 local congregations with an ordained ministers of over 1,000 today. So that has been a miracle of growth beyond what one could ever explain. Now the TECAN member churches and even some other Pentecostal churches are now coming and asking, what's the secret? What's the secret? Our answers have always been, God is faithful in the midst of all this. Two, we have decided to be obedient to Christ's teaching and to continue to witness for Christ, no matter what. Nobody can claim glory for that, but this is just it. Now let me say this. The attacks unfortunately continued. Yesterday, 29th day in the month of June 2026, there was an attack in Lhasa. And Lhasa was one of the mission stations. Of course, the third mission station established 1926, 27. There was an attack on a secondary school. 36 students were abducted. 29 are EYN members. Sadly. So, let me not talk about how bitter the whole thing. Let me change and say, okay, has the picture all been so terrible or so bad? No. The good side of the whole thing. One, the peace unit have the Christian Muslim Peace Initiative called CAMPI. So EYN will go into communities, pick 10 prominent Muslims, 10 prominent Christians, bring them into a group, and then begin to engage, to dialogue, so that we build bridges. And this has been quite helpful. In schools, the peace unit will go and organize peace clubs, football matches and soccer and games between Muslims and Christians to build bridges. This is what EYN is doing. Our peace and trauma healing workshops and therapy workshops that is being organized are done to all Muslims and Christians in our communities. And EYN is doing that. There, we have organized a lot of interreligious workshops where Muslim clerics and Christian clerics will come, teach about our commonalities, teach about why we all work together as human beings. The challenge had been, there had been no time that Muslims contributed to funding all these projects. It's only funded by the church. And sometimes the temptation is, if they are interested in peace, why wouldn't they also make a commitment? But we said, we will not stop, we will continue to do that for the sake of Christ. Moving on from there. In the midst of all this, we said, now EYN as of today has 170 nursery, primary, and secondary schools. 170. So we said, what we needed to do is, let us have a university. The reason is, if you go to Borno State, you go to Bauchi State, Kano, and most of the states in the north, as a Christian, you will be qualified to study all the courses of your choice. But because you are a Christian, you will be denied. It's as bad as that. And then the educational standard is dropping, corruption is permeating everything, and even the quality of education is not as expected. So we felt that there's a need for us to have a university where we will give moral quality education that indeed will transform our society and then produce credible men and women. And then when that is done, we believe that it will give opportunity to our children to study courses of their choice and then be relevant. So at the moment, in the midst of all these challenges, we have been able to secure a land, 236.9 hectares of land. And then, okay, good. That's the construction of the gate and the permanent site of the university. And already, the National University Commission, we are submitting all the required documents. So our hope is to start business courses and entrepreneurship training courses at Cultural Seminary being temporary site while we continue to construct the permanent site. So when we do this, the 170 schools will be feeders to this university, and then we will be able to contribute again meaningfully to Nigeria's growth, educationally, and in every aspect. We are also working on having a Bretheren University, Bretheren television and radio. Somebody will ask why. The reason is a lot of content in the social media cannot be trusted. Of course, in developing countries, nearly 60, 70, or even 80% of the content of social media are fake. So people don't trust it. And our peace message and the gospel of salvation EYN is known for is never heard. And at any time we go out sharing, we will be confronted and some people will say, but this, your understanding, we don't know it. And some will even ask, how long have you been in Nigeria? I remember Reverend Yugo would say there are times that our cars have inscription of EYN and security agents will stop you and say, which company is this? And we said there is a need for us, the gospel of peace, the gospel of salvation that EYN is known for, to be preached through a conventional media outfit. And of course, the Corporate Affairs Commission has given us approval of the name Bretheren Broadcasting Services, so we will be preaching and teaching. And let me digress a little bit. In 2014, while I was in Abuja at that time when he came, the president of Nigeria then was President Goodluck Jonathan, His Excellency. He went worshiping in EYN. And our women fellowship, the women that came on the thank you visit some years back, the women fellowship ministered in songs, in Hausa, not English. And this is somebody who doesn't even understand anything in Hausa. And he was there and his spirit was so moved. So when he stood up and he said, Reverend Mbaya, anytime there is any national function in the National Christian Center to which I will be in attendance, this woman must go there to minister. And true to it, our women had to go to the National Christian Center to sing songs of praises to God in Hausa to the whole nation. So we felt that when we have this medium, it will be an avenue that the whole of Nigeria will hear the gospel of peace, will see what it is to be peaceful, and will work together in that aspect. The best group, Bretheren Evangelism Support Trust, we are working in collaboration with them to start offering scholarship for our children from primary, secondary, and we hope that when the university kicks off, it will also include scholarship to our university children. This will cut across all courses, not really theology, but every course that they will want to study. EYN now has Bretheren Microfinance Bank. So we have a bank which is initiated by President Dali at that time, and then we have the board chair, and Paul Gazama is here. He's the chairman of the board of directors of the Bretheren Microfinance Bank. And this is giving soft loans, less interest loan to our pastors and our members in small businesses, in farming, and that has been doing an amazing job in helping our people to regain and to rebuild and to move up again. What we are planning is now to relocate and to repatriate our members that are in Minawawu camp in Cameroon. What the Borno State governor did was, he went, sent a team, they took data of all of them, and then he started evacuating and repatriating all the Muslims, and said he was evacuating all the Christians and putting them in Muslim settlement, and that's very dangerous. So most of them declined, so he's still left now on the church to try to move them. We have moved about 100 and something families so far, giving them some stipends to move out, find where to be. Some we have moved them to some camps again, but that's the major target area that we want to move all our people back. Youth. We are targeting the youth because we know that when we get the youth to have the gospel of peace and to continue to live peacefully, showing the light of Christ, the future of the church will be brighter. So we started volleyball tournament. And then last year, when we had the volleyball tournament, the Nigeria Volleyball Federation were there themselves. And then 19 EYN youth were selected and they played at national and even international levels. This year, 11 youth were selected. And they have played. Some have gone to Lagos and to all other states of the Federation, and then one by next week will be going to China from Korhi there. So that's really bringing the youth. But one interesting thing is this, that the officials of the Nigeria Volleyball Federation who went there, a lot of them were Muslims. So what we do every morning, we have a devotion every morning. And at the close of the games, we have a devotion. And then dinner is served communally. So we sit to eat together. At the closing ceremony, the Muslim officials stood up and said, "We thought we came for games. Little did we know that we come for revival." And they said they have never seen and known that churches are like this, because their perception about church is different than how they met us. And they have now enlisted EYN on the portal of the Nigeria Volleyball Federation. So now EYN had been selected to be a place where trainings of officials and referees will be done at Korhi, there as a peace church. So this is a testimony. So from there, we said we are now working on, by December, we are going to have a mega youth convention. And the mega youth convention is targeting 10,000 youth of EYN. Preparations are ongoing. We have lots of teachings to do on entrepreneurship, on the other trainings that will help them to be able to be peace witnesses of Christ in the challenging world. And we believe that if we are able to get this youth going forward, the future of EYN, and of course Bretheren and other Baptists all over, will continue to be stronger and stronger. Our partnership with Bretheren Theological Seminary, very surprising that churches that do not believe in pacifism are now coming to EYN to take courses in biblical peacemaking. Pentecostals, from the ECO, from the Church of Christ in Nations, from Baptists, from all other churches. So this partnership has now made the church, EYN and Bethany, bringing lots of people from other traditions and faith backgrounds to come to learn about how to build peace, how to make peace, and how to be peacemakers in a challenging world. We also have developed a skill, a system of building bridges with all our traditional rulers. And that had been so helpful, because before crisis could erupt, then with the traditional rulers, we come together and say, okay, let's need to do this and that. So that is what EY has been doing and has been quite helpful. Our healthcare system, the dispensaries that had been there in those days, but unfortunately, things couldn't work well. The displacement, of course, came. Other competitions from other sister health institutions came up and weakened our own. But we are back to life again. We are back to life, and it's a very strong way. We received medical equipment, a 40-foot container of medical equipment from the Covington Community Church, and now they are being put to use. So we have a lot of facilities now that is competing favorably with other health institutions around us. So since it's open to all, and in Nigerian context, let me say this in Hausa, kayan missionaries, yana da amfani, yana da taimako. So people believe in anything that is attached to missions. So our dispensaries, people will leave general hospitals and come to dispensaries of EYN from across faith. So we believe that with this, things will continue to work better. We are also working on establishing grown-up processing and training center. A lot of our members get into farming with grown-up peanut. So we have a member of ours who developed a machine who is able to process grown-up various things. So we have engaged with him. So we are now working out a site and putting a plan that we will start that. And then our members now will then be empowered, and then we'll process grown-up into various things for our youth, so economically we'll be empowered. We also have started a technical workshop, and we employ 12 youth in the technical workshop. So giving job opportunities, but also being our own together. As we continue to grapple with the issue of persecution, challenges on the church and the insecurity, which is of course affecting even food security of our nation. One thing I will stand here before you to say, that has been a source of encouragement even to us as leaders. Pastors of EYN and members alike are determined more than ever before never to shift from obeying the word of Christ, but being truly Jesus, not only to our neighbors, but to everywhere, to continue to stand for Christ. On the 14th of June, we observed a Black Sunday, meaning all members appear in black attire to show solidarity to all families that are grieving, to show solidarity with all Nigerians, regardless of faith background, those that are in abduction, to show solidarity with all the victims of all the evils that have happened, to pray, and then churches to speak up. That was indeed put by CAN, Christian Association of Nigeria, but surprisingly, it is only EYN that complied, and all churches in EYN. We wore black that Sunday and spoke out to the government, to our security agencies, and offered prayers for God to intervene in our security situations. I call on you to continue to pray along with us, to support us in all this that we are doing, but with the assurance that our resilience and choosing to live in faith over fear is helping us to continue to stand strong for Christ Jesus and to continue to walk and continue to minister. We look forward to a time that our youth will come over here and share their stories to encourage the youth over this and say, that's the way we are witnessing. Let me pause here.
Pleasure to hear Dr. Daniel Mbaya speak not only about the reality of what terrorism is and the violence that is currently taking place, and he actually left early from this conference to actually go back and deal with some situations that are currently happening in Nigeria today. And so I had a chance to talk with him as he got back to Nigeria and make sure that he got back safely. But his speech is very encouraging too, because there's a lot going on. And one of the things that I enjoy about Dr. Daniel is the fact that he looks for the way to really speak to the other. You know, people who were hurting them, killing them, destroying their churches and communities. Um, they have found a way to talk with them, to encourage them to, and to have a different narrative told. And I want to say that's a tremendous thing about the EYN. There's a series of questions at the end of Dr. Daniel's speech. People wanted to ask him questions, and we're going to look at some of those, and I'll kind of walk through several of them. But one in particular is about American foreign policy, and I think you'll find it fascinating. And so there's time for these questions and answers that Dr. Daniel hosted for us. And so hope you enjoy them too. And we're going to take a look at our first question, and Mike's going to roll that up for us. And we'll take a look at one of the first questions that was asked. And Mike, what is that question? Do you have that there in the queue? What our first question is for this? And so,
We're having a small problem with data.
yeah, we're having a small problem with data. And I want to say, whenever you're in studio, this is maybe on Chibok or some of the current violence that's taking place now. And this is part of the situation that Dr. Daniel was speaking to us as he begins. So we'll take a look at this question and then how he answers it as well. Go ahead and roll that, Mike.
payment of ransom had been emboldening these people, and that now
This is
in
going to be on the
Nigeria,
payment of ransoms.
kidnapping for ransom is one of the biggest business. Sadly, the government are never serious about that. They will always say that we are top on the situation. Just for example, when the attack was ongoing yesterday, immediately when we got the news, I sent a message to the Minister of Defense. I sent a message to the brigade commander in charge of the area. I called him on phone. We are working on it. We are doing this. We even spoke this morning. So we will only speak out. We will always speak forth. But even the abduction in Mbaya of recent, where over 300 of them were released, the money that was paid was into billions of naira. Sadly.
We'll pause that right there. And I want to speak on the backside of this. So one of the things that the EYN they negotiate and they speak to is really kidnap and ransom, and that is one of the things that fuels the violence that goes forward in Nigeria. And it's not just Nigerians that have this as an issue, but for Christian missionaries around the globe, for different nations and different governments. And he mentioned Russia, which was kind of interesting as well. So this is an ongoing issue. This is one of the challenges that the EYN deals with, and they deal directly with the government. And as we were at the conference, he was dealing directly with the brigade commanders and also members of the EYN government, the state government itself. So interesting to look at that, how faith, government can really resolve or help negotiate or work in areas of violence and terrorism.
EYN programs are sustainable in the sense that most of the programs we are getting engaged in are programs that, one, not only the members of the church are passionate about, but even the communities are passionate about. Since most of the programs have to do with what will touch the lives of all, not limited to the church. So it is sustainable in the sense that a lot, with the bridge that we are building across, with the community leaders, with the peace initiative that we are engaging in, and that a lot, there are so many who are quite helpful and ensuring that whatever we do are secure and are safe. It will be interesting to know that even the land that we bought for the university, initially a Muslim had already finished the bargaining to pay. But when he was informed that the church is interested and the church wanted to do this for our people, not only now, even for the future, he backed up. So our projects are sustainable by the grace of God, are secured by the grace of God. In the midst of the tensions, we are looking forward up to God that one day there will be peace in the nation, there will be peace everywhere, and we will continue to witness for Christ.
I want to talk about this particular question because a lot of people ask about, are programs sustainable? When it comes to mission work or funding or supporting nonprofits, can it be sustained? And I think he addresses this question very well. And he really talks about the relationship between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, which the Muslim population of Nigeria, it's actually the majority, is about 55% of the Nigerian population. The Christians are the minority, about 45%. But it's amazing how, in many areas, they're able to work together in harmony. And when it comes to education, different community things, the EYN finds ways to bridge the gap and find the commonality. And I think that's important. And then he closes this question with the question of peace. And so the EYN is a peace partner for Nigeria and globally for that matter. And so, of course, he prays for the peace of Nigeria, but also praying for the peace of the world. And we know that one day that peace will prevail. But peace is one of those essential things, and I'm glad the way that he addressed that question in the way that he did. Let's take a look at the next one.
Military needs to go in and help Christians in Nigeria. What do you know about that?
Yes, of course, there was a strike by the American government in Sokoto, that is the northwest, not in the northeast, where the headquarters of the Boko Haram had been. We were aware of that. In the Christian community, they were divided. Some people were happy for that. Some people were not happy for that. Now, let's leave that aside. Has it achieved the target or the aim? No. It has rather worsened the whole situation. Is it true that some of these insurgents have been decimated as a result of that? From the northeast, I will emphatically say no. What have we gained? In fact, it was after that that school children have been again being abducted. For over a long time, school children were not abducted. So it has not achieved its aim. I'm in America, so I will be careful. But I heard recently the president of the US was saying that now there are no longer persecutions of that. Absolutely, that's not true. He has either been ill-advised or something is going on differently. The truth remains, the persecutions are there, the attacks meant nothing. If there's anything it has achieved, it has rather provoked them to do the worst.
Wow, that's kind of an interesting question because it really goes to the heart, maybe, of our American perspective. And many of you might remember the attack or the bombing run and campaign that took place by us on Christmas Day. It was kind of a surprise attack. And it appeared, from our perspective, that that stopped some of the kidnapping and terrorism by Boko Haram there or the other groups that were there. Um, but in fact, the reality was a little bit different. I thought Dr. Daniel handled it well with a sense of humor. Now that I'm in America, I have to be a little quiet about, my response. But really, his statement really goes right to the heart of it, and that is that it actually, for peace, it really made things worse, actually, more than better. And these are not things that we see follow up in the narrative. And I don't think we've heard anything really about what has happened since that particular American campaign in Nigeria. And so it's kind of interesting to see what the backside of that really was. And foreign policy matters, and our foreign policy matters as well. But uh, establishing peace or finding channels for peace, that's really should be at the heart of our foreign policy. And so I thought he handled the question very well, and really for an American audience, really addressing that. And that's kind of the elephant under the doily, so to speak. It really addresses the question well, but really the goal is peace. And so I thought that was a well thought question, and I thought he did an excellent job in answering that. And I think we have maybe one more question that we'll look at. No, that's it, huh? And so I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, a little bit unusual on our part. This is actually part one of the interviews that we did from Nigeria. And our goal is really to tell some stories that you wouldn't see in the news or that you might not hear in any other way. And so that's the purpose of our podcast. Sometimes our stories are informative, sometimes they're humorous and provide entertainment and enlightenment. And then sometimes they're really hard hitting and cover information they wouldn't hear in any other podcast. Thank you again for being our audience. If you've enjoyed this podcast today, please like, subscribe, and share. And thank you again for being our audience. That was an interesting last question because I think a lot of times in American foreign policy, we wonder what's the effect of the actions that we have. And I thought Dr. Daniel did an excellent job in answering that question. And I think for Americans, we want to know what's the impact of our foreign policy. And when that bombing took place, or that counter strike took place, it was Christmas Day in Nigeria. And so to really kind of see something past that, how the Nigerians looked at it, he said that basically the country was split on whether it was effective or not. And but the reality is that after the fact, that it had a more negative impact than it did positive. And so it's actually made matters worse, especially when it comes to violence and terrorism that's taking place there. And so for us as Americans, we don't always get the news of what takes place maybe half a year, 8 months, or a year later, what's taken place from American foreign policy. I thought Dr. Daniel negotiated that question very well. And for us, it is very informative because I don't know that we would have heard this from that perspective in any other way. I want to thank uh, Dr. Mbaya for being here with us in America, for taking the time out of his schedule to leave Nigeria and some of the things that he does globally, and to come with us. And not only to invite us to the conference, but to be with the COB and to just report on some of these things. I hope as an audience that you've had a chance to really learn something about violence, peacemaking, terrorism, and really some of the things that people are doing around the globe in order to bring peace and find a way to communicate to the other, even in an age of violence. And so the EYN, they are a tremendous peace partner for the world. And as he said before, they are looking to create more opportunities for peace and connectivity, not only in the state of Nigeria, but also globally. Again, it's been a pleasure to be your host today at West Coast Cast. And as we take a look and close part one and part two of these interviews from Nigeria, we hope that you found them uh, educational, but also highly informative. Keep them in your prayers. And again, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts at West Coast Cast. Thank you for being our audience. Like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again on our next program.